Welcome to the Boost Coding Flow channel. In this tutorial, we'll show you how we as chatroom participants have the authority to block or hide inappropriate messages shared in the chatroom. By doing this, we can ensure that only appropriate messages will be displayed in the chatroom for as long as the chatroom exists, while blocked messages are hidden from other users. Only the author of the blocked message is notified that the message has been blocked, while other participants cannot see the blocked message as if it had never been written. To begin, let's make the headers for the sheet. For this demonstration, the headers consist of timestamp, username, messages, and the status for the block. By reading the block status, the admin can reissue the blocked message by deleting the block status on the cells right next the blocked message. After that, we name the sheet as chatroom. After the sheet has been set up, let's do the script for the project by clicking Extension on the menu bar, then choose Apps Script menu. The doGet function serves as the entry point for the web application. When a user accesses the deployed web app URL, this function is automatically triggered. Its sole purpose is to generate and return the HTML output that will be displayed in the user's browser. It achieves this by calling the createHTMLOutput from file method on the HTML service object, specifying chat as the argument, which tells the system to look for an HTML file named chat within the project to serve as the user interface. The getMessages function is designed to retrieve all chat records from the spreadsheet and format them for display. This function accepts a single parameter, current username, which holds the name of the user currently viewing the chat. Inside the function, it first accesses the active spreadsheet using spreadsheet_app.getActiveSpreadsheet and then obtains the specific sheet named chatroom with the getSheetByName method. It then uses getDataRange.getValues to fetch all the data from this sheet as a two-dimensional array. The function initializes an empty array called messages to store the formatted message objects, and a Boolean variable has blocked messages set to false, which will track if any blocked messages exist in the sheet. The function then initiates a for loop, starting from index 1 to skip the header row, iterating through each row of the retrieved data. Within the loop, it first checks if the second and third columns of the current row contain data, ensuring that only rows with a username and a message are processed. If this condition is true, it declares a variable as blocked and assigns it the Boolean result of comparing the value in the fourth column of the row to the string blocked. If the message is blocked, the hasBlockedMessages flag is set to true to record this state. The function then constructs a message object using messages.push, which includes the row index, the username from the second column, the message text from the third column, and the blocked status. Finally, the function returns an object containing the array of messages, the flag indicating the presence of blocked messages, and the current username that was passed into the function. The postMessage function is responsible for adding a new message to the spreadsheet. It takes two parameters, username and message. As a safeguard, the function begins with a conditional statement that checks if either the username or the message is empty or null, and if so, it immediately returns without taking any further action, preventing empty entries from being saved. If both fields are valid, the function again gets the chatroom sheet and creates a new date object to record the current timestamp. It then uses the appendRow method on the sheet object to add a new row with the timestamp, username, message, and an empty string for the blocked status column. The blockMessage function is a straightforward utility designed to mark a specific message as blocked. It accepts a row index parameter, which is the spreadsheet row number of the message to be blocked. The function gets the chatroom sheet and then uses the getRange method with the provided row index and the column number 4, which corresponds to the blocked status column. It then calls the setValue method on that range to set the cell's value to the string blocked. The unblock message function serves as the counterpart to the block message function, providing the ability to reverse a block action on a specific message. This function accepts a single parameter, row index, which represents the exact spreadsheet row number of the message that needs to be unblocked. Within the function, it first establishes a connection to the active spreadsheet by calling spreadsheet_app.getActiveSpreadsheet, and then it retrieves the specific sheet named chatroom using the getSheetByName method. The function then utilizes the getRange method on the sheet object, passing the provided row index and the column number 4 as arguments to pinpoint the exact cell that holds the block status for that message. Finally, the setValue method is called on this specific range to update the cell's content to an empty string, which effectively removes the block status and allows the message to become visible to all users again. This operation is atomic and immediately updates the spreadsheet, ensuring that any subsequent data retrieval will reflect the unblocked state of the message. The function does not return any value, as its primary purpose is to perform a data modification operation on the backend. The HTML body begins with a div element that has a class attribute set to chat container, which serves as the main wrapper for the entire chat interface. Inside this container, there is an H2 heading element that displays the title, chatroom, to clearly identify the purpose of the page to the user. Following the heading, a div element with the ID chatbox and class chatbox is created, and it initially contains the text loading messages to provide visual feedback to the user while the application retrieves data from the spreadsheet. The next element is a paragraph tag with the ID blocked warning and class warning message, which contains the text "Your message has been blocked by the admin." This element is styled to be hidden by default and will only become visible when the current user has messages that have been blocked by an administrator. The class input container that groups together all the input controls for the chat functionality. Inside this container, the first input element has the type text and the ID username with a placeholder attribute set to your name to guide the user on what information to enter. The second input element also has the type text, but with the ID message and a placeholder of type a message, which is where the user will compose their chat messages. Following the text inputs, there is a span element with the class emoji btn and an onClick attribute that calls the toggle emoji menu function, displaying a smiley face emoji as a button for opening the emoji picker. Immediately after this span, a div with the ID emoji menu and class emoji menu is placed, which will serve as the container for the dynamically generated emoji selection grid. Finally, a button element with an onClick attribute set to call the sendMessage function is created, displaying the text send, which the user will click to post their message to the chat room. The JavaScript section begins with the declaration of a constant variable named emojis. This array serves as the data source for the emoji picker, providing a curated selection of commonly used emojis that users can easily insert into their messages. Each emoji in this array is represented as a Unicode character enclosed in quotation marks. making them readily displayable in the browser. The emoji characters can be added simply by copying emoji icons from any messenger service or any social media post and pasting them into the script. The Generate Emoji menu function is responsible for constructing the visual emoji picker interface within the page. This function starts by declaring a variable called menu and assigning it the reference to the div element with the ID emoji menu, using the getElementById method. It then clears any existing content from this menu by setting its inner HTML property to an empty string, ensuring that the menu is refreshed each time it is generated. The function proceeds to iterate through the emojis array using the forEach method, and for each emoji in the array, it creates a new span element using the createElement method. The text content property of this newly created span is set to the current emoji, and its onClick event handler is assigned an arrow function that calls the addEmoji function with that specific emoji as its argument. Finally, the span element is appended as a child to the menu div using the appendChild method, resulting in a complete grid of clickable emojis. The fetchMessages function initiates the asynchronous retrieval of chat data from the server-side Google Apps script. This function first obtains the current username by accessing the input field with the ID username and retrieving its value property. It then uses the google.script.run API, which is the standard method for client-side JavaScript to communicate with the app's script backend. The withSuccess handler method is chained to this call, specifying that the displayMessages function should be executed upon successful completion of the server request. The final part of this chain is the .getMessages current username invocation, which calls the server-side getMessages function and passes the current username as a parameter to ensure that the server can properly process the request based on the user's identity. The displayMessages function serves as the callback that processes the data returned from the server and renders the chat interface. This function accepts a single parameter named data, which is the object containing the messages array, the blocked status flag, and the current username. Within the function, it declares variables chatbox and blocked warning to hold references to the corresponding DOM elements, and it extracts the current username from the data object for later use. The function then uses the map method on the data.messages array to transform each message object into an HTML string representation. Inside the map callback, it first checks if the message is blocked and if the message's username is not the current user, and if both conditions are true, it returns an empty string to effectively hide blocked messages from users who are not the sender. For messages that are not hidden, it declares a variable block btn which contains the HTML for a block button, but only if the message is not already blocked. Otherwise it sets this variable to an empty string. The block button class line constructs an interactive button element within the message display area. This HTML string begins with the opening button tag, which defines the start of a clickable button element, and it includes a class attribute set to block btn to apply the predefined CSS styling that gives the button its red background and white text color. The onClick attribute within this button tag is an event handler that specifies what JavaScript code should execute when the user clicks the button, and in this case, it calls the block message function with a dynamic argument. The msg.index portion is a template literal placeholder that injects the actual row index value from the current message object into the string, resulting in a unique function call like block message for each message. This dynamic generation is crucial because it ensures that clicking the button correctly identifies which specific message should be blocked by passing its corresponding spreadsheet row number to the function. The button's text content is simply the word block, which provides a clear and concise label for the user to understand the action they are about to perform. The function also declares a variable message content that uses a ternary operator to conditionally format the message display, showing blocked messages with an italic style in the blocked prefix, while normal messages are displayed with the username in bold and a specific color class. The function then returns a div structure containing the formatted message content and the block button. And after the map operation completes, all the generated HTML strings are joined together using the join method and set as the inner HTML of the chatbox div. After rendering the messages, the display messages function checks whether the current user has any messages that have been blocked by the administrator. It accomplishes this by using the sum method on the data.messages array, which tests whether at least one message in the array meets both conditions of being blocked and belonging to the current username. The Boolean result of this check is stored in the userHasBlockedMessages variable. The function then controls the visibility of the blocked warning paragraph by setting its style.display property to block if the user has blocked messages, or to none if they do not, providing immediate visual feedback to the user about their message status. The sendMessage function handles the process of posting a new message to the chat room. This function begins by retrieving the values from the username and message input fields using their respective ID attributes. It then performs a validation check using an if statement to ensure that both the username and message variables contain truthy values. If both fields are valid, the function makes an asynchronous call to the server using google.script.run, specifying with success handler, fetch messages, to refresh the chat display after the message is successfully saved. The .postMessage, username, and message line invokes the corresponding server-side function, passing the username and message as arguments for storage in the spreadsheet. After initiating the server request, the function clears the message input field by setting its value property to an empty string, which provides a clean input area for the user's next message. The block message function serves as a client-side wrapper for the message blocking functionality. This function accepts a single parameter called row index, which represents the spreadsheet row number of the message that needs to be blocked. Inside the function, it uses the google.script.run API to call the server-side block message function, passing the row index as an argument to identify the specific message. The withSuccessHandler method is set to call fetch messages after the server operation completes, ensuring that the chat interface automatically updates to reflect the blocked state of the message. This function does not return any value, as its primary purpose is to initiate the server-side blocking operation and refresh the user interface. The toggle emoji menu function controls the visibility of the emoji picker interface. This function starts by obtaining a reference to the emoji menu div element using getElementById. It then checks the current display style property of this element using a ternary operator, comparing it to the value block. If the menu is currently visible, the function sets the display style to none to hide it. Conversely, if it is hidden, the display style is set to block to make it visible. The add emoji function is called when a user clicks on a specific emoji within the emoji picker menu. This function accepts a single parameter named emoji, which represents the clicked emoji character. It first obtains a reference to the message input field element using getElementById, message, and stores it in a variable called message input. The function then appends the selected emoji to the current value of the input field by using the addition assignment operator to concatenate the emoji to the existing value property. After successfully adding the emoji to the message input, the function calls the toggle emoji menu function to automatically close the emoji picker, providing a seamless and intuitive user experience. The document.getElement by ID, username.add-event-listener, input, fetch messages line establishes a real-time event listener on the username input field. This method call uses document.getElement by ID to locate the input element where users type their name, and then invokes the add-event-listener method on that element. The add-event-listener method takes two arguments, where the first argument is the string input, which specifies the type of event to listen for, and this event fires every time the user types, deletes, or pastes text into the field. The second argument is the fetch messages function itself, which means that whenever the input event occurs, the fetch messages function will be executed immediately. This functionality is crucial because it allows the chat interface to dynamically update based on the current user's identity, ensuring that blocked messages from this user are shown to them as a warning while hiding blocked messages from other users. Without this listener, the username would only be captured when sending a message, and the chat display would not automatically adjust when the user changes their name. The Generate Emoji menu call is a direct function invocation that executes the Generate Emoji menu function when the page initially loads. This function call is placed outside of any other event handlers to ensure that the emoji picker interface is constructed and ready for interaction before the user attempts to use it. The Generate Emoji menu function populates the empty emoji menu div with clickable emoji options by iterating through the predefined emojis array, creating span elements for each emoji, and attaching onClick handlers to them. This initialization step is essential because it prepares the user interface components that are not present in the static HTML but are dynamically generated through JavaScript, providing a clean and maintainable way to manage the emoji selection feature. The fetch messages call immediately after the emoji menu generation triggers the first data retrieval from the server when the page loads. This direct function invocation ensures that the chat box does not remain with the placeholder text, loading messages, but instead populates with the existing messages from the spreadsheet as soon as the page is ready. The fetch messages function communicates with the server-side get messages function through the google.script.run API, and upon successful retrieval, it calls the display messages callback to render the messages in the chat box. This immediate fetch is critical for user experience because it provides instant visibility of the chat history without requiring any user interaction, allowing users to see the conversation context right away. The set interval, fetch messages, 2000 line establishes a recurring timer that automatically refreshes the chat display at regular intervals. The setInterval function is a built-in JavaScript method that takes two parameters, where the first parameter is the function to be executed repeatedly, which is fetch messages, and the second parameter is the time interval in milliseconds, specified as 2000, which represents 2 seconds. This polling mechanism continuously calls the fetch messages function every 2 seconds, ensuring that the chat interface stays synchronized with the spreadsheet data without requiring the user to manually refresh the page. This approach effectively simulates a real-time chat experience by frequently checking for new messages, updates to blocked statuses, and changes in the message list. The 2-second interval strikes a balance between providing timely updates and avoiding excessive server calls that could impact performance. making it a practical choice for a lightweight chat application built on Google Apps script. Finally, you need to publish your Google Script in HTML file, so every users can access your Google Script website. Please click the Deploy blue button, then click New Deployment. Please click the cogwheel or gear icon on the right next to Select Type menu, the Select Web App menu. In the configuration settings, make sure that Who Has Access list is filled with anyone. Then click Deploy. You can review the project's privacy and terms of service to understand how the project will process and protect the data. On the bottom of the page, please choose Continue to complete the deployment process. After the deployment process completed, you will get the deployment link of your project that you will use to see the result of your project. Hope this tutorial helps you to create a simple code of Google Script yet powerful to fulfill your web system's need. Please stay tuned for more knowledge about website coding that will be shared on the Boost Coding Flow channel.